Okay, now let's test our almost empty implementation. So remember, we've got a couple fields in our implementation, we've got a constructor in our implementation, and we've got a bunch of method stubs that throw unsupported operation exceptions. So we're going to test this. We're going to go to list stack, and in NetBeans, if you go under tools, you can get to create update tests. This says bounded stack list stack test. That seems like an appropriate name. I know from past experience that the JUnit this NetBeans uses is JUnit 4, which I like. And it wants to generate all of this stuff. I don't want it to generate any of this stuff except like maybe an initializer. Okay. I'll just do OK there. All right, so here we've got our test template. We're not going to need a constructor in our test class. In fact, the constructor in a normal Java class is where you initialize your fields, your instance variables. In a test class, you want to initialize your fields in the setup method, because that way if anything goes wrong, your test fails and you get better error reporting. So we're not even going to bother with the constructor there. And we're testing the list stack, so the private field in this test class is going to be a list stack. Now I could do this. I could say list stack and then just say, some stack like that. That would be bad for a couple of reasons. First of all, this doesn't have a generic type with it. In fact, I don't want a generic type here. I want a concrete type because we're going to create a concrete stack. But we don't want list stack for our declaration. We want to declare this as a stack. In fact, I'm going to declare it as a stack of strings. Okay, we need something concrete in there. We can't put just E. There's no E here. This is not a test class. Has to be concrete. So we've got this stack we want to test, and then here's where we initialize our stack. All right, so we declare our stack here, we initialize it here. What I'm going to do, since we hardly have anything implemented, in fact we have no methods in our list stack implemented, I'm going to test an empty stack. And I'm going to use a non-traditional Java naming convention just because it helps me keep track of my stacks here. So I'm going to call this stack underscore empty underscore 3. And what that will be is an empty stack with a capacity of 3. I'm calling it that because I'm going to have some other stacks. For example, my favorite stack is stack underscore ABC underscore 6. So this is going to be a stack with 3 elements in it, ABC, starting from bottom to top, and a capacity of 6. But I'm not even going to worry about this stack until I can get some very basic test pass. So I'm going to comment that out. And here, I'm going to initialize that empty stack. Okay, I'm just going to type STA and hit in NetBeans. If you hit Control Space, you get some code suggestions, code completion suggestions. So I'm going to initialize this, and now here's where I have to use the concrete stack. Okay, Here in the declaration, if you have an interface, you should use it, unless there's some overriding reason you can't. When you're initializing the stack, well, you need a concrete implementation. So our concrete implementation is the list stack. I'm using the diamond notation here as is appropriate. And of course, this is a one argument constructor. It expects an argument here, and I want my argument to be 3 because my stack has a capacity of 3. I already have a test method stub. I don't want to just test some method. What I want to test is, I'm going to try to make this really simple. I want to test the accessor methods that we have so far. Right now in the list stack, we have 2 accessor methods. That means they do not change the state of the stack, and those are size and capacity. And we have 2 mutator methods, and that means they do change the state of the stack. Those are push and pop. So the simplest methods are the accessors. So I'm going to test those first. So I'm going to call this test empty. I'm sorry, it wasn't size, it's depth. Test empty depth. All right. So here I want to check that, let's see, assert equals. Okay, this is good. My expected value for depth on an empty stack should be, well, 0, right? And my actual value for the empty stack is going to result from calling the depth method on this empty stack. So I'm going to start typing, and then hit Control Space, then hit dot, and choose depth, and that's it. So basically what I'm saying here is I'm expecting the depth of my empty stack to be 0. Okay, that seems perfectly reasonable. And I probably should go and test this right now, but before I do, I'm going to quickly write another test, since these methods are so simple, called, in fact, I'm just going to copy this. Okay, instead of test empty depth, I'm going to say test empty capacity. And this is going to be the capacity of this empty stack, which we know is 3 because of the way we named our variable. And that's why I named this stuff this way, to keep track of what I'm doing. So this will be capacity. And that we should not expect a value of 0. We should expect a value of 3. Okay, I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to run it. And I think, well, it's in test packages. So I'm going to use test file. And as you might expect, I failed. All right, in fact, I failed both tests, no test path. 2 of them cause an error, and you can kind of see that not supported yet. So they're throwing unsupported operation exceptions, so we have to change that. We go back to our list stack. And fortunately, we can get both of these pretty easily. Well, first of all, capacity is going to be the easiest because capacity should return just the field capacity. Return capacity. Okay. And for depth, what is the depth of the stack? Well, the depth of the stack is how many elements are in the stack. Well, we're implementing this, So all we have to work with is contents and capacity. So based on, I mean, if you go here and look at this stuff, for example, so our contents here is a list with 3 elements, and the stack has 3 elements. So if we return the number of elements in the list, we should get the depth of the stack. So those two things should be equal. All right, so depth should just be return contents size. All right, we'll save that, and then we'll rerun these tests. And both of them pass.